was a very cowardly child. Arguably, I'm still a cowardly adult. But when I was a kid, I didn't like media that was scary or sad or had the characters embarrassed in it. So I didn't watch a lot of kids' media because I was afraid of it. This includes most of the Disney princess movies. But now I'm an adult, and I talk about girly kids media online, so I figured it was time for me to watch all of the Disney princess movies. And then because this is YouTube, I'm going to rank them. I'm sure you're wondering which movies we're going to include. If you don't know, there are 13 official Disney princesses. I am making the executive decision that we are going to include Frozen. Anna and Elsa are not official Disney princesses. The speculation is that when Frozen came out, it was so successful that they didn't feel the need to add it to the Disney princess brand. So Frozen is its own separate product line. But I wanted to watch Frozen, so we've included it. And then no sequels, because I didn't want to. This was kind of a lot of movies for me. I don't really watch movies. And I knew that the sequels were going to be worse. So I was like, do I want to watch a bunch more worse movies? No. I don't know, maybe you can bully me into watching them later. But for the purposes of this video, our list has 14 movies. But before we get started, do you want to get a good night's sleep like you've pricked your finger on a spinning wheel? Or maybe nap like you've eaten a poison apple? Then you should hear about the sponsor of today's video, Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep makes premium sleep masks so you can block out the light and sleep like Sleeping Beauty. So first of all, it has these adjustable eye cups that sort of go around your eyes so that they block out the light, but they're not pressing on your actual eyeballs. I have very voluminous eyelashes. It's a blessing and a curse. And a normal sleep mask is like crushing my eyelashes. So with this, you're able to get a great seal around your eyes so it blocks out the light, but it's comfortable against one of the most sensitive organs in your body. Are eyes an organ? I don't know. And they're adjustable, so the cups are Velcro, so you can move them around. So depending on your head size and where your eyes are, you can move them so they fit great on you. And then the Sound Sleep Mask has built-in Bluetooth speakers. I like to listen to YouTube videos or podcasts when I go to sleep. And usually I wear earbuds, which first of all, I don't think it's good for your ears to have an earbud in while you're sleeping. And then they're also not terribly secure as you're tossing and turning. So then I'll wake up and one of my earbuds is buried somewhere in the blankets. With the Sound Sleep Mask, the speakers are secure, they stay in the same place. You can adjust them depending on where your ears are. And they're embedded flat in the mask, so you can lay on your side and it's not digging into your ear. I have both insomnia and chronic fatigue, so I sleep poorly and at weird hours, and I've really been enjoying the Manta Sleep Mask. There's something very bedtime ritualistic about putting on a sleep mask, you know? It's time to go to sleep. You can't see anything. If you're curious about trying it out for yourself, go to mantasleep.com and use my code SarahSerif10 to save 10% off your order. Now let's start our list with number 14, Raya and the Last Dragon from 2021. So Raya is our most recent official princess, and I was watching these movies chronologically, so this was the last movie I watched. I feel like someone's gonna argue that I was just burnt out because I had watched 13 movies at this point. But I'm just gonna argue that this movie isn't good. It's inspired by the cultures of Southeast Asia, which is cool, and it has dragons in it, inspired by the mythical creatures, the Naga. I don't particularly care about dragons, but it's not a deal breaker for me. The setup for this movie is that humans once lived amongst dragons, but then this malevolent force showed up called the Droon, and the Droon turned both people and dragons into stone. And this went on for a while, and a ton of people were stone, and a ton of dragons were stone. And so then the last dragon, named Sisu, channeled all of her magic into a magical gem. And this magical gem banished the Droon, and brought all of the stone people back to life. But all of the dragons were still stone, and now Sisu was gone. Then everyone fought over this gem, so then the country split into 5 clans. Raya is from the clan that ended up with custody of the gem, and she is the daughter of the chief or king or whatever, so she's a princess. And her dad just wants everyone to get along, so he invites everyone from the other clans to, like, come have dinner, I guess. Raya makes a friend her age from one of the other clans, and she foolishly invites this other child to come look at the gem. And it turns out this was an elaborate plan from this other little girl, and her clan tries to steal the gem. There's a ton of fighting, and then the gem ends up broken into 5 pieces. And because the gem is broken, the Droon comes back. So then each of the clans takes one of the pieces of the gem and runs off. Tons of people get turned to stone, including Raya's dad. And then we cut to 6 years later. Raya has been searching for the last dragon. She is finally successful. And then they go on a quest to get all of the gem pieces back. Here's what I liked about this movie. It had an interesting setting. It's basically like post-apocalyptic. Most people are turned to stone. Every character we meet has like a sad backstory about how their family was turned to stone, which is obviously unique for a Disney princess movie. Raya has this armadillo roly-poly guy named Tuk Tuk. She rides on his back as he like rolls around, so he's her like whimsical form of transportation. I think that's fun. The girl who betrayed Raya is named Namari, and she has this like lesbian haircut, and she's chasing after Raya, and a big part of this movie is her and Raya reconciling. I liked her, she was fun. And there's also this little boy who's on a restaurant boat. The Droon are repelled by water, and so he's just stayed on this boat this whole time. I thought that was a cool idea. Things I did not like. This movie felt very busy, because we have 5 kingdoms and a ton of side characters. It made the pacing really weird, because we have to get 4 gem pieces, 1 from each of the kingdoms, and each time we meet a new side character, and it just felt like it was dragging to me. I was like, oh my god, we still have more gem pieces. Also, this movie suffers from, like, I don't know how to call it, like, DreamWorks energy. Like, it's a very silly, goofy kids movie. Maybe that's unnecessarily critical of DreamWorks movies. I don't know how many of those I've actually seen. But, like, for example, Sisu the dragon. She's like a comedy dragon who's voiced by Awkwafina. I found her extremely annoying. Disney loves to get a comedian to play a side character, and I feel like it's not always great. Like, it's often kind of distracting. The Awkwafina dragon was extremely distracting. I cannot overstate how much she ruined the vibe for me. Like, we start the movie, we're doing a lot of info dumping. It's kind of a cool setup. And then Raya finds Sisu, and I was like, oh no. And then one of the side characters that we meet in one of the other kingdoms is this orphan baby who steals things. It's like a con artist baby who has 3 monkey helpers. Oh, I hated it. And the way this works is like each new kingdom we come to, we meet a side character, and then the side character gets added to the gang. So then this like Ocean's 11 boss baby is now part of the group forever. Oh. A minor thing is that whenever the characters like greet each other, they do this, I guess, symbol of the gemstone. They like make a circle with their hands. And I thought it seemed kind of stupid. Every time they did that, I was like, we couldn't have thought of something better. This is now me getting very petty. In a better movie, I would have been like, whatever, the circle thing. But in this movie, I'm like, oh my god, stop doing that. I can't even really give you more specific complaints. I can't even remember what happened in this movie. I feel like it's not a good Disney princess movie because I feel like I didn't get enough Raya. There had to be all this Sisu and restaurant boy and baby and the warrior man who I can't remember anything about, and a multi-part gem quest. So I feel like this movie did a bad job of selling me on Raya the princess. And then also separately, just as a movie, I did not like it. Number 13, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves from 1937. Snow White and the Seven Dwarves is considered like very important to the Disney canon, obviously. People say it's the first feature-length animated movie. That's not technically true. The Adventures of Prince Ahmed came out in 1926. It was a German silhouette animated movie, so it's using like paper cutouts. but Snow White and the Seven Dwarves is the first feature-length cell animated movie, and the first feature-length animated movie from the United States. And it's obviously a huge deal and a big part of film history and a big part of Disney history. And at the time, people thought this was a stupid idea. It was referred to as Disney's folly because people thought that Walt was so stupid for making a feature-length animated movie. People's understanding of cartoons was that they were like funny shorts. So what would a cartoon movie even be? Disney employee Ward Kimball said that Hollywood moguls were like, it was okay, 6-7 minutes like the shorts, but an hour and a half, no way. Big reason was that you run out of funny things to do. You had to have a laugh a minute. And the bright colors would hurt your eyes. Everybody would get up and walk out. Walt, of course, plugged ahead. He didn't believe that. He felt that if you had a solid story, not only laughs in it but tragedy, it would go. I had to re-record that because I forgot to do the accent. And yeah, it's just like a movie. It's just like a normal movie, but it's animated. There's a part of me that's like, why were people so confused? But I'm living in the future where an animated movie is just a normal thing. So the movie itself is fine. It's like kind of boring. I watched these chronologically, as I said, and this was the first one I watched. And the first 3 movies, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, they're very hard to compare to the rest of them. From The Little Mermaid onwards, it's much faster paced, they're mostly musicals, they're much higher energy. There's this very old-timey vibe to the first 3. And so probably part of what I'm reacting to is that this is a very old movie. I'm not watching movies from the 1930s regularly. And it's also basically the first movie of its kind. So maybe they didn't quite have the hang of things yet. Things I liked. The evil queen. She's an iconic villain. She's just evil for evil's sake, and she has villainous eyebrows. Snow White's weird little voice. It's like a vibrato baby voice. The animals in the forest are kind of cute. And then Snow White doesn't get a character arc, but I would say that Grumpy does. It's kind of a low bar for any character to have a story arc. He kind of goes from mean and sexist to like less mean. Things I didn't like. The pacing. I think it's not good. We have a super rushed beginning. We open with the queen. She's mad that Snow White is so beautiful. Then Snow White sings her song at the wishing well. The evil queen tells the huntsman to kill her. He doesn't. And she runs into the woods. That's 10 minutes. Then she talks to the animals, and she goes to the cottage, and she cleans. And we check in on the dwarves. They walk home. Then we get 8 minutes of them goofily being afraid that there's an intruder. Everybody introduces themselves to each other. We have to wash up for dinner, and Grumpy is really mean about it. That's 36 minutes of cottage and dwarf filler. Then the queen makes her hag potion. The dwarves and Cinderella have to dance after dinner and figure out sleeping arrangements. We briefly check back in with the hag and learn that true love's kiss can break the spell. Snow White sends the dwarves off to work. Then the last 14 minutes of the movie, we get the evil queen giving her the apple, Snow White falling asleep. We kill the hag, and the prince comes and kisses Snow White. So it's 10 minutes at the beginning and 14 minutes at the end where, like, the plot happens. The rest of it is, like, slow, boring filler, and it does feel like old-timey animated shorts. We don't even see Snow White and the Queen talk until the very end when the Queen is a hag and comes to give her the apple. Like, we don't know what their relationship is like. I mean, like, obviously it's bad, but, like, we don't see it on screen. Also, hot take, I don't like the dwarves, which is bad for me, because obviously they're so much of the movie. We get these not very funny slapstick segments with them. And then, I don't know, they feel kind of pervy towards Snow White. The vibe is very much, hubba hubba, a pretty lady. And she, like, cooks and cleans for them. It's very much like a sexy mother role. I know this is from 1937, but I still don't like it. Also, of the movies, it is not my favorite aesthetically. It's fine. I don't dislike it, but I'm not like, ooh, it's so pretty. Number 12, Pocahontas from 1995. This movie is weird, conceptually. These are real people from history. We aged Pocahontas up for the purposes of this movie, and we invented a romance. I feel like context is very important here. So in 1991, Beauty and the Beast was nominated for Best Picture. Not Best Animated Picture, because that didn't exist yet. Just Best Picture in the normal category. It was the first time an animated movie had ever been nominated. It's only happened 2 other times with, I think, Up and Toy Story 3, but like in the extended list of nominees. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point is, this was a huge deal. Now, Beauty and the Beast did not win Best Picture, but Disney studio head Jeffrey Katzenberg now really wants that Oscar. So at this point, they were already working on a Pocahontas story. So Pocahontas evolved to be an epic love story because Jeffrey Katzenberg thought that that was what would get them the Oscar win. Everyone at the studio was very excited about it. They thought that it was like artistic and serious. They were working on The Lion King at the same time, and apparently everyone wanted to jump ship and work on Pocahontas because that was like the real movie. And then it came out, and the reception was meh. And its legacy has definitely been quite unfavorable. Obviously, it's disrespectful to Pocahontas and the actual Powhatan people, but then as a movie, it's also just underwhelming. It feels like Oscar bait. But I feel like that all helps make sense of why they did this. I think they thought that having it based on a real person with some social commentary would make it feel more serious and respectable. There's a Lindsay Ellis video about Pocahontas that I think is an interesting watch. And then I also did a little bit of research about Pocahontas, the actual person. There's like a paper published about her on the National Parks website. Who knows how much longer that will be on there. But it's kind of my understanding that we don't know a ton about Pocahontas. Everything we do know is accounts from other people, never from Pocahontas herself. And the different accounts kind of conflict each other, which makes it confusing what actually happened. But it was interesting for me to learn about which elements of this story had basis in maybe not actual historical fact, but like the legend of Pocahontas. And it was also cool to learn about this woman who, by all accounts, had a very interesting life, no matter which source you're coming from. She was the daughter of a chief of a very large region. She possibly saved John Smith's life, but also possibly he was embellishing, like sending letters back, wanting to make his experience sound cooler and make Pocahontas sound cooler. And it's also possible that he was misunderstanding some sort of like religious ritual where the Powhatan people were sort of accepting him into their circle and they were doing a ritual and he maybe thought that they were going to hurt him. Pocahontas possibly married Kocoum. John Smith did have to go home to England because he suffered a gunpowder explosion. How long does it take to get to England if you're like sailing via old-timey boat? I thought it was like multiple weeks under poor conditions. I mean, I guess if you really need specialized medical care, I don't know. I'm so glad I don't live in the past. At some point, Pocahontas was captured by the colonists for ransom, and at some point when she was with them, she converted to Christianity and she married John Rolfe, different John. They had a son, and there was a peaceful period between the colonists and the Powhatan people. And then she was brought to England, and she was sort of paraded around as a success of the colonies. Then she was going to sail back to Virginia, and then she died of unknown causes at the age of 21. In the movie, she meets John Smith, they fall in love. Another guy named Thomas kills Kocoum. John Smith is blamed for it, so he's almost killed, but Pocahontas saves him. Then the villain, Governor Ratcliffe, fires at the Powhatan chief. John Smith dives in front of him to take the shot, and so then he has to go home back to England. And then I think some of the Pocahontas England stuff is in the Pocahontas sequel. So there's elements in there that are based on something. Not most of it, but I was just kind of shocked that John Smith did actually sail back to England. Things I liked. Pretty animation. A lot of sunset colors, this very pretty forest. The soundtrack is really good. We have some big pretty ballads. Just Around the River Bend is really fun. Pocahontas has a girl best friend, which rarely happens in these movies. When I was watching these chronologically, this was the first princess to have a human friend. And then the movie does kind of portray the colonists as being bad. I mean, obviously, they're in some ways the villains, but we have some lines about the colonists being bad, which I went in with such low expectations. I was mildly happy to see that there. Things I did not like. This movie is very big and epic, but there's not a lot of, like, heart to it. It doesn't necessarily feel like a story someone was passionate about telling. It's kind of bland. I don't really care about these characters. I don't know anything about them. Who are Pocahontas and John Smith? They both want to be free, vaguely, I guess. They're both hot and nice. Which brings me to, why is this a romance? We know why. I more mean, this shouldn't have been a romance. Because it's also, if you're like doing a follow-up to Beauty and the Beast, trying to get an Oscar, this is not a good romance compared to like Beauty and the Beast, right? Who are these characters? Why do they like each other? I know that other princess movies have insta-love, where there's not really a romance and you don't really know where they like each other and it kind of doesn't matter. Like Snow White. Snow White and Prince What's-His-Face instantly like each other, and I guess that's fine. But Pocahontas is supposed to be our serious, grounded Oscar bait movie. The plot hinges on the romance between the two of them. So the fact that it's bad kind of makes the whole story weak. Also, the language barrier between Pocahontas and John Smith is resolved by listening with your heart and, like, magic. That's a cop-out. That's stupid. We could have just had a montage where they learn each other's languages. Part of what's happening is I think the plot takes place over such a short period of time. I feel like a lot of these movies that have weird pacing is because it happens over such a short period of time. Like Snow White happens over, like, 2 days. I think maybe they think that you lose the urgency if it doesn't happen over 2 days. But I don't think that. I think you should have stretched that timeline out. There's a subplot where the thieving raccoon and the prissy little pug learn to get along, and it's like a metaphor for the colonists and the Native Americans getting along. It's a weird metaphor, because, like, why is the raccoon conniving and stealing things? I'm sure it's like, because he's a raccoon, but then it makes the metaphor weird. Because the Native Americans were not the ones taking things. Also, it makes the tone weird. Like, this is our serious Oscar bait movie, and then we cut over to Miko the raccoon making, like, smirky little faces. This movie also pushes that narrative that the Native Americans and the colonists generally got along. Like, it was sometimes tense, there was sometimes fighting, but they ended up helping each other. As we know from my recap of actual Pocahontas, on a micro level, I don't think it was ever that simple. I think sometimes there would be positive and negative periods of time between individual groups of Native Americans and settlers. It seems unlikely that it was ever, like, straightforwardly, it was bad and then it was good. And then, obviously, on a macro level, no! The colonists always had an antagonistic and predatory relationship with the Native Americans, which has continued even to this day, hundreds of years later. So this ending of John Smith and Pocahontas being like, we should all get along, and then they do, is, like, comical. It also pushes this narrative that it was bad individuals, not like a bad system. Like, the problem was Governor Ratcliffe, but John Smith was one of the good ones. He just wanted to be free in the new world. Also, side note, John Smith is voiced by Mel Gibson. I think people are going to be shocked that I didn't put Pocahontas last, which is fair. It's not good, and it's flawed on sort of a fundamental conceptual level, right? But as a movie, I feel like it's not as annoying. I feel like if you ask me, do you want to watch Raya and the Last Dragon or Pocahontas? I'd first ask if those are my only options. And then I'd probably say Pocahontas. It has a great soundtrack. It's not generally irritating. And a lot of Snow White feels like less of a movie and more of just a screensaver. But it's 12th in a list of 14, okay? I don't like it. Number 11, Princess and the Frog from 2009. I vaguely remember seeing this in theaters with my grandma. This is the first one on the list that I had seen before watching it for this video. This is the first movie they made after they created the Disney Princess brand in the early 2000s. So instead of retroactively picking characters to fit into this brand, they are creating a character to fit into this brand, which is a different vibe. She's also the first Black princess, so there's a lot of pressure on them. There's always been criticism of the fact that the Disney princess lineup is very white. Especially when it first started, it would be like, the white girls and Jasmine. Mulan and Pocahontas were there, but often weren't like present in the merchandise. So over the years, they have tried to increase the diversity of the line. This was their first attempt at that, and I think it's pretty meh. Things I like. The New Orleans setting. It's amazing. It looks so cool. Jazz age era with all these beautiful buildings. It's able to have that fairy tale vibe while being set in 20th century America, which I think is impressive. Tiana, I think, is a great princess. She's very hardworking. She feels like just like a real person, kind of a normal human woman. The music is great. I didn't really remember that. They're all sort of jazz inspired instead of the typical straight musical theater style. I'm Almost There is a great song, and we have a stylized animation sequence with it. It looks all art deco and pretty. Friends on the Other Side, which is the villain song. Dig a Little Deeper. It's a good soundtrack. Tiana wants to open a restaurant, which is a clear goal. Princesses don't always have that. And it's also very endearing. The costuming is good, with the exception of her final lily pad dress, which I think is kind of ugly, which is unfortunate, but both her and everyone else has a lot of great looks in this movie. We have our obligatory talking animal characters, a crocodile who wants to play jazz music, but he can't because he's a crocodile, and a Cajun firefly who's in love with a star. They're perfectly fine. And then Tiana has a friend named Lottie, and she's very fun. She gives me sort of Kristen Chenoweth energy. She's so high energy and over the top and girly. It does really feel like we were trying to fit a nice white character into this Jim Crow era South setting. But I do like Lottie. She's fun. Things I do not like. The twist of the movie and the whole plot is that Prince Naveen comes to New Orleans, gets turned into a frog by Dr. Facilier, the shadow man. He gets Tiana to kiss him because he thinks that she's a princess because she's dressed up for this costume party. But because she is not a princess, when she kisses him, she also gets turned into a frog. And then they spend the majority of the movie as frogs in the bayou. Apparently this was based on a 2002 novel called The Frog Princess, which has that twist. All the bayou stuff is kind of boring and feels like filler, and there's a lot of gross frog humor, like them trying to eat flies and getting their tongues tied together. Someone thought it was a fun twist for Tiana to get turned into a frog, and that person was misguided. The romance is good in theory, but it's so hard for me to get into it when they're both frogs. There's some cute stuff. She tries to teach him how to cook. He plans a date for them, but we're wasting all this time with this frog nonsense. Also, I don't love that the villain is like a voodoo magic guy. I like studying world religions, and voodoo was like an actual spiritual practice. It's not evil. I feel conflicted about it because Dr. Facilier gets a cool song and we get some cool visuals out of it, but it does feel kind of insensitive. Also, this movie feels a little bit Shrek-inspired, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but the idea of a human versus a gross green creature, we think we're going to turn a character human, but instead it doesn't work, and now they're both going to stay green, gross creatures. But I feel like it's a lot weaker than Shrek. Because, like, what's the point of the frog transformation? What's the theme? How does it connect to the theme? It also makes me think of Beauty and the Beast, where the point is that he's very shallow and has to learn to appreciate what's on the inside, and that's why he's turned into a hideous beast. I mean, hideous depending on who you ask. I know some of you are into that. In Princess and the Frog, Prince Naveen just needs to, like, get a job, and not be such a philandering playboy who's squandered all his money, get a little bit more serious. Turning into a frog doesn't really have to do with anything. It's just because Dr. Facilier has a master plan to get Lottie's dad's fortune. But it makes the movie feel weak thematically. Because, like, what's the frog stuff about? Nothing? That's kind of the whole movie. I didn't know if I wanted to put Prince Naveen in likes or dislikes, which I think is a bad sign. So I'm putting him in dislikes, but, like, a light dislike. I think it's just his accent that's, like, kind of distracting. And it's distracting to have a frog with an accent. Number 10, Mulan from 1998. People are not going to like how low I put this movie. To be honest, I don't really like it either. I thought it was going to be way higher. This is one of the movies I had seen before this, and I thought I liked it a lot. But after rewatching it and then watching the other ones, it's not bad. They've just done better, I feel like. Things I like. It's based on a Chinese legend, which is nice. I like Mulan. She is very awkward 90s Disney protagonist, but she's very smart and determined and super clever. She does a lot of cool problem solving. I feel like she's the smartest of all of the princesses. The soundtrack gives us some iconic songs, but there's not as many of them as some of the other musicals, because it sort of stops being a musical partway through. We get a tone shift, and then it's much more straightforwardly an action movie. I like Li Shang. He's a hot, nepo baby general. He got the job because of his father, but he's trying to prove himself. There's this dweeby guy sent by the emperor to monitor him. And then there's this somewhat feminine hot guy that he feels weird about. I'm sure that was distracting. And it turns out she's a woman. So, bisexual crisis averted. And then this is random, but after Mulan goes to the matchmaker and comically messes it up, her dad gives her like a pep talk. They're sitting underneath a tree and there's a flower that hasn't bloomed yet. And he's like, this flower is going to bloom later than the others, but it's still going to be beautiful. And you're like, oh, that's sweet. He's not mad at her. He just feels bad. He's trying to make her feel better. There's a lot of lame dads in Disney movies, so I liked that scene. Things I didn't like. There's all this awkward humor of Mulan trying to pretend to be a guy. Hated it. I had to like skip ahead because I couldn't handle it. It's funny because she's being awkward and embarrassing herself. No, it's not. There's also a lot of like men versus women humor. Wasn't this already tired by the 90s? Then the romance, if you can even call it that. There's not really a romance. He thinks she's a guy. They don't even really talk to each other that much. But then at the end, he's like, I'm gonna show up at her house with her helmet and like be kind of awkward and like maybe want to stay for dinner. It's cool that they don't get together at the end. We're just saying now they're maybe gonna start dating. But they're not really one of my favorite couples. And then Mushu is kind of hit or miss for me. Sometimes he's funny, and then sometimes it's just kind of distracting. Maybe part of it is because he is an iconic, well-liked character, and so every one of his one-liners is, like, plastered on Disney merch. Like, I'm overexposed to it. Maybe that's part of the problem. And then I feel like the Huns are kind of weak villains. I know that, like, the legend of Mulan that we're basing this off of, this is just the villain in that story. And I'm sort of glad they didn't come up with some weird magical villain. But our villain is just like this big guy with yellow eyes. There's a reason he doesn't get merch, you know? Number 9, Frozen from 2014. I'm going to preempt this by saying this is a flawed movie. I feel like structurally, pacing-wise, there's some problems. It's not the tightest script. But watching it, I was like, this is pretty fun. I could see why kids loved this 10 years ago. I think I watched this when it came out. I have no memory of doing so, but I think I did. But then also, it was just so popular and so overexposed when it came out. It's possible I just remember knowing about it through cultural osmosis. Things I liked. Kristoff. I think he's fun. He's kind of standoffish and dry and sarcastic. The men can be hit or miss for me, so I liked him. Olaf. I know he's polarizing, but I thought he was cute. There's a lot of iconic Olaf lines where at this point I'm like, haha, yes, you've been impaled. But like actually hearing it in the movie, I was like, his read is funnier than I thought it would be. Elsa. She is our first angsty princess. And like at this point, still our only one, right? She has magical powers. I think she's the only one who has those. And she's going through it mentally. I just feel like she isn't on screen enough. It feels like Anna is our main character, and then sometimes we check on Elsa. I don't feel like she has that much dialogue. I don't feel like I got to know her that well. This movie also has our first twist villain. It was iconic at the time. Now, watching this movie, it does feel a little bit cheap, because after him and Anna have their meet cute and she leaves, Hans smiles, but it's like a cute lovesick smile, purely for the benefit of the audience to like trick them into thinking that he's a good character. I think that's kind of lame. I think you can't do that with a twist. Sister love and sacrifice saves the day instead of romantic love. That's nice. Also, I loved the whole scene at Oaken's trading post and sauna. Oaken is fun. Anna comes in looking for winter merchandise because Elsa has frozen everything. But it was summer, so Oaken does not have any winter merchandise. Kristoff comes in and is all covered in snow and grumpy. I think that's a very fun scene. Things I did not like. I don't love Anna. She feels like a copy of Rapunzel, but like even more silly. And then sort of connected to that, Anna and Elsa's voice actresses are Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel, and I thought that was distracting. The whole time I was like, that's Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel. I know that we've reached a point in animation where we're never just going to hire career voice actors to play characters. It's always going to be celebrities. But I don't know, pick lesser known celebrities. And I feel like there's a little bit too much going on, and so the screen time isn't used that efficiently. We fight with some wolves, we fight with an ice monster. I would have appreciated more Kristoff and Anna development, more time with Elsa. I feel like the script maybe needed another round. Then there are these magical rock trolls. I don't love them. Why do they have a song? This again is like, what are we doing? Why are we spending time on this? And then I didn't love the Anna and Kristoff romance. Something about it's just like underwhelming to me. I feel like maybe they didn't get enough screen time, even though we are following them for a lot of the movie. We're not following them in a romantic capacity. Like, they never have a romantic moment. It feels like they're reluctant allies becoming friends. But then towards the end of the movie, we go to the rock trolls because Anna got injured. And the rock trolls are like, you guys should get married. And Anna and Kristoff are like, maybe. Like, you didn't sell me on it. I also feel like in this movie, you can sense Disney grappling in real time with the Disney Princess brand. We're prioritizing sister love over romantic love. We have this whole ongoing bit about how Anna can't marry Hans. You can't marry a man you just met. There's something just so embarrassing about brands commenting on themselves, you know? Like, we're in on it. No, you're not. Number 8, Tangled from 2010. Again, I believe I saw this in theaters. Truly, who's to say, you know? Things I liked. This was when we switched to CGI. I really like traditional 2D animation, but I think this movie utilizes the CGI very well. It still looks very pretty and magical. All of the CGI princesses kind of look the same, but Rapunzel was the first one, so I'm not gonna blame her. It's not her fault that everybody copied her look. Speaking of, I like Rapunzel. She gives me very much Ariel vibes of leaving her home and being curious and excited about this new world. She's charming. She's also kind of adorkable in the way that all the modern princesses are. It feels very overplayed now, but she was the original. Mother Gothel. She is a villain who is an abusive mother figure, similar to the stepmother from Cinderella. But I feel like she's better than the stepmother. She's very passive-aggressive and manipulative and controlling and undermining. She has Rapunzel pull her up to the tower, and she's like, ugh, it must be so hard pulling me up like that every day. And Rapunzel's visibly out of breath, and she's like, no, it's fine. And Mother Gothel's like, then I don't know why it takes so long. I'm just kidding. And you're like, oh, she sucks. Awesome. All right. And her singing is great. It's very aging Broadway starlet. She's a fantastic villain. The music is great in this movie. And I liked the change to the source material to make Rapunzel's hair magic. In the original Rapunzel story, a witch catches a man stealing from her garden. And then she's like, as punishment, I'm gonna take your newborn daughter. It's like, why? Just to be mean, I guess. Whereas in this one, Mother Gothel isn't a witch. She's just a mean lady. And she takes Rapunzel because she's magic. And then there's stuff from the original story that they kept, but they modified it that I think was well executed. In the original, the witch character finds out that Rapunzel has been seeing this prince, and so she cuts off Rapunzel's hair, and she lures the prince up to the tower using this severed hair. So Rapunzel isn't there, but he thinks she's there because of the hair. Whereas in this version, Mother Gothel just has Rapunzel tied up. She doesn't have her hair cut off, because in this version, the hair is magic until you cut it off, so we can't cut it off until, like, the end. Also in the original, the prince goes blind in a briar bush or something, but when he reunites with Rapunzel, her tears magically heal him. In this version, Mother Gothel tries to kill Flynn Rider. He cuts off Rapunzel's hair so that she will be free of Mother Gothel because she's no longer useful and now she's gonna die of old age. And even though she doesn't have her magical healing hair, her tears heal him from dying. So it's the little things that are from the story that I thought were done well. Things I did not like. The tone. It was almost enough to get it bumped down a place, but then I was like, Rapunzel is a stronger movie than Frozen. Everyone's so quippy, and there's so many one-liners. It feels very Joss Whedon-y, in parentheses, derogatory. Which, speaking of tone, Flynn Rider, or, Eugene, I find him kind of annoying. He gets better over the course of the movie, but he's still always kind of cocky and quippy in a way I don't like. I believe what people always say about this movie is that they had like a focus group to see what women find attractive in order to design Flynn Rider. Straight women, what's going on with you guys? This is what you're into? I don't get it. Also, when we meet the, criminal thugs at the pub, the Snuggly Duckling, we get a scene like the one in High School Musical where everyone admits that they have, a secret passion. Oh, I'm a criminal with a hook for a hand, but secretly I want to be a concert pianist. And I guess you're supposed to be like, ha ha ha, isn't this funny? This thug collects ceramic miniature unicorns. No, not really. And we do have a little bit more Princess Brand commentary in this one. At the end of the movie, we make it very clear that Rapunzel and Flynn Rider waited to get married. It's like, wow, thank you so much. That was very important information for me to have so that now I know that this is a feminist movie. I'm not opposed to them trying to be more feminist with these movies, to be clear. It just always feels extremely transparent. Number 7. Cinderella from 1950. This was the only movie I watched as a kid, because it was the only one that didn't, super scare me. And I can see why I liked it. It's very slow and pretty. I dressed in honor of her today. I tried to have my hair up, but it hurt too much. Things I like about this movie. It's gorgeous. It's so pretty. Mary Blair did some of the concept art, and I feel like you can feel that. The use of color and light is very good. Everything is so soft. A lot of things feel like they're glowing. I like Cinderella. I know some people think she's, passive. I think those people were not paying attention to the movie. She's very kind, and she's doing her best in a bad situation. I don't know exactly what people want from her, I feel like Rapunzel doesn't get that same criticism, even though she's in a very similar situation. Both Rapunzel and Cinderella escape from home to have one wild night out. Rapunzel sees the lantern, Cinderella goes to the ball. But other than that, they're very deferential towards their mother figure. I guess Rapunzel hits people with a frying pan. Maybe if Cinderella hit people, people wouldn't be so judgy of her. Feels sort of counterintuitive, doesn't it? I like Fairy Godmother. She's only in one scene, but I find her very charming. Just this silly old lady. The music in Cinderella is very soft and pretty. Obviously, the Sing Sweet Nightingale sequence where she is in all the soap bubbles, that's awesome. The stepsisters and the stepmother are all appropriately awful. And then we get a couple of scenes with the king and his exhausted Duke assistant. Those are pretty fun. Things I did not like. I knew this going into it, but there's a lot of filler with the mice and the cat. Feels very Tom and Jerry cartoons. I feel like some of you are going to complain that Snow White had a bunch of filler, and I hated that so much that I put it basically in last place. Why does Cinderella get to be so much higher? The answer is that I don't like the dwarves, and I find the mice pretty inoffensive. So the filler with the dwarves is kind of annoying, and the filler with the mice is whatever. Also, I have to acknowledge, this movie is very slow, and very little happens in it. It happens over the course of about a day and a half. Cinderella wakes up in the morning singing. The invitation to go to the ball comes that afternoon. The ball is that night. The Duke comes with the glass slipper the next day. So we don't have time for more plot. So instead we put in all these dumb mice scenes. Maybe if we had extended the timeline, more stuff could have happened that wasn't, like, boring. Number 6, Sleeping Beauty from 1959. This was a pleasant surprise. I had never watched this, and it was quite good. It's definitely the best of the 3 original movies. Things I liked. It's very stylized. It's kind of angular in an interesting way. The forest looks very cool. There's some animation sequences that are a bit more experimental. The 3 fairies are awesome. They are the main characters, which I'd heard people say before, but I hadn't watched the movie and I didn't really know that much about them. They're very fun. We're following the movie from their perspective. So they bless Aurora at the christening or whatever. After Maleficent comes, they concoct a scheme to hide Aurora in the forest. When their plan fails, then we follow them helping Prince Philip. And the stuff going on with Aurora and Prince Philip is kind of like a B plot. The fairies are always bickering, and they're very incompetent when it comes to doing things without magic. They're very fun. Probably my favorite is Merryweather, because she's just, like, constantly angry. I like Aurora. She doesn't get as much screen time as any of the other princesses, but that's not really her fault. It's not her story. But when she is on screen, I think she has a fun vibe. She's very coy and kind of flirty. I think she's probably the prettiest of the 3 classic princesses. Maleficent is great. She's just evil for evil's sake. She has a spooky raven or a crow. I don't know. A horrible black bird. I like when she finds out that her minions have been searching for a baby for the past, 16 years. And her voice is just fantastic. Oh dear, what an awkward situation. This movie doesn't have any long filler segments like Snow White or Cinderella. That's not the only reason I think it's better than those movies, but it definitely helps. And then the movie also uses music from the Sleeping Beauty ballet. I noticed that mentioned in the beginning credits, and then I noticed it throughout the score as the movie was going. Things I did not like. I did not particularly care for the medieval setting. I like the cottage and the forest, but the, medieval castle I don't particularly care for. The kings, Aurora's dad and Philip's dad, have had this plan for the past 16 years that Aurora and Philip are going to be in an arranged marriage. And occasionally we cut to them talking about it, and it's a little bit funny. But I want to go back to the characters I care about. And then the movie is also pretty slow and low energy, comparatively. Number 5, Aladdin from 1992. This is definitely one of the ones where people are like, you haven't seen that? But now I have. Things I like. Aladdin. Everybody loves Aladdin. So many people who are into boys, he's their childhood crush. I get it now. He's very charming. He's very fun. He's probably the best male character out of all these movies. And then partly I think because he's great, but then partly because they executed it well, the romance is really good in this movie. Jasmine and Aladdin have great banter. I feel like they talk to each other quite a bit. There's a low bar for these movies, but A Whole New World is a fantastic scene. And when he's like, do you trust me? That's awesome. The music in general slaps. Fantastic. I don't think there's a single song in this movie I don't like. Jafar is a great villain. He has this ridiculous, slow, evil voice, which is fun. Kind of random, but I love the Sultan. Just this little incompetent man who loves his daughter and can't tell that his vizier means him harm. Also, I love that Jasmine has a tiger. Oh yeah, that's Jasmine's tiger. Just a full-grown tiger that she has. It's her pet. Sometimes she bites people. Things I did not like in this movie. Not all of the humor lands for me. I feel like of the movies, this one is the most explicitly a comedy. We have Iago, Jafar's talking parrot, who is voiced by Gilbert Godfrey. And we have Genie, who is voiced by Robin Williams, doing a lot of improv. I think there's some quote that's comedy is the first to age, and the first to age poorly. And that's kind of how I felt watching this. Not everything lands. There's a lot of dated pop culture references I don't get. A lot of it does work. A lot of it is funny, but not all of it worked for me. Then there's also an Orientalism problem. Like, this movie is sort of a mishmash of a bunch of South Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. And then you look on the IMDb and all of the actors are white. This was, I think, the first time Disney tried to do a princess movie that wasn't based on some sort of European fairy tale. I think over the years they've gotten better with representation, but this does not work amazingly. Also, the sexualization in this movie is kind of uncomfortable. There's a lot of no-name hot lady side characters who are, like, sexy. And then Jasmine is so sexualized compared to all the other princesses. Except arguably Pocahontas. But even then, Jafar is very predatory towards Jasmine. And in the final confrontation with Jafar, she seduces him as a distraction. It all feels very yucky. And watching these in chronological order, it was very obvious that all of the princesses before her are completely non-sexual, wearing ball gowns that are like completely covering them. And then Jasmine is in this skimpy two-piece with this rapey guy who works for her dad. Like, no. And then a stupid complaint, but they keep bringing up in this movie that there's a law that Jasmine has to marry a prince. What law? From who? Her dad's the Sultan, right? Can't he just change the law? And, like, that is the solution. That is what happens at the end, is that the Sultan just changes the law. So that it makes it so stupid that this entire movie up until now, we've been talking as though, like, oh, what are we gonna do? That's just the law. This is a fake conflict. What are you talking about? I started thinking, like, maybe I'm crazy. Like, maybe he's the Sultan of, like, this region, but he's, like, under a different, more powerful sultan, and so maybe that guy made the rules, and so he can't change the rules? No. Also, in the scene where Jasmine goes down to the bazaar by herself, she's about to get in trouble with a merchant for stealing, and Aladdin rescues her by pretending that she's his sister with mental problems. Didn't love that. Number 4, The Little Mermaid from 1989. I don't like the ocean, or boats, or even really mermaids. So I kind of went into this with low expectations. But despite that, I really liked it. First of all, I liked Ariel. I was surprised because I thought she was probably, like, overrated. But no, she's very fun. She's very wide-eyed and curious. And I love that she's a big fan of humans. She collects human things and she tries to learn about them. Her greatest desire in life is to become a human. I think that's a fun idea for the Little Mermaid plot, to have this mermaid who's, like, jealous of humans. It's very clear motivation, too. Sebastian, the crab, he gets sort of a character arc where he goes from thinking that Triton needs to be more strict with Ariel, and then at the end he's, like, supporting Ariel and trying to help her. Ariel doesn't really get a character arc. She knows what she wants, and she doesn't really have to learn anything. But Sebastian does learn. I love that he's an adult man symphony conductor who gets stuck babysitting this teenage girl and becomes, like, her sidekick. He's great. Flounder's, like, fine. He's cute. But Sebastian's awesome. The soundtrack is great. I'm always less surprised when the soundtrack is great because as a kid, I heard the songs. I didn't watch the movies, but I was aware of the music. I had a Disney Princess Lullaby CD, and then a just normal music CD, and then I had this sing-along, like, DVDs. There was one that was, like, a tea party. So it was fun watching these movies, and it would be, like, stuff I was unfamiliar with, and then we'd get to a song, and I'd be like, oh, I know this part. And then Ursula, she's a great villain. We all know that she's based on the drag queen Divine. She's very dramatic and campy. And then maybe it's silly, but because I had never watched it before, I didn't realize that she was scheming on how to take down Triton from the beginning. And Ariel was just her gateway into that. I thought that Ariel maybe came to her first, and then Ursula realized that that would be a good opportunity to take down Triton. No. She was scheming from the beginning. Things I did not like. There's a sequence where Ariel has become a human and she's in the castle, and Sebastian has come into the castle and he's in the kitchen, and the cook is gonna, like, cook and eat Sebastian. Or I guess the cook isn't gonna eat him. He's gonna serve him to the... Whatever. We're gonna kill and eat Sebastian. And, like, it's played funny, but I know as a kid I would have found that upsetting and terrible. So with stuff like that in movies, I'm always like, why is that in there? And then I feel like it raises more questions. Like, it's never resolved that Eric is from a seaside kingdom and seemingly they eat seafood all the time. And then it's also a mystery what the mermaids eat. Like, you know, sea creatures probably. Triton kind of sucks. I know that it's like on purpose and he like grows over the course of the movie. But he destroys her human collection, which I find to be like a terrible betrayal. He has just so much of a temper, which I really don't like. Eric as a prince is kind of whatever. He has a dog. He seems kind of nice, I guess. He's kind of blah. But I think he's some people's favorite. I don't know. Maybe just because he's a normal, nice guy. And then as for the romance, I feel like it's hard for me to get into it when they don't talk. I like dialogue and banter. I know that Ariel's making facial expressions, but I don't know. Number 3, Brave from 2012. This one surprised me. I think I saw it, but if I did see it, I don't remember liking it this much. I really enjoyed it. Things I liked. The setting. I like that it's Scottish. I like the trees. Everything's so green. The characters all have accents, which is fun. Occasionally one side character will have an accent. But this is, I think, the only time where everyone has an accent. And it's much more, like, immersive. You're like, yeah, this is taking place in Scotland. It feels the most grounded in a time and place because of that. I like Merida as a princess. She does archery, which is cool. More, I just like that she's funny. And her dad is very fun, too. When all the suitors are competing for her hand in marriage, Merida and her dad are, like, sitting there and, like, making little quippy comments about them. I think that's very fun. Merida has 3 little brothers who I thought were cute. And the plot of this movie is that Merida accidentally gets her mom turned into a bear, but the little cursed cake that her mom eats that turns her into a bear, her brothers also eat it, so they also turn into bears. They're like 3 little bears running around. I also like the theme of this movie. It's like reconciliation and forgiveness, both between Merida and her mother, and then also between all of the different clans. Things I did not like. Again, a Disney princess branding thing where Disney's trying to be like self-aware. The plot of this movie and Merida's whole thing is that she doesn't want to get married. And like, you know, we get it. And then the catalyst for the plot, how Merida gets her mother turned into a bear, is silly. Merida's mom says that Merida has to get married. Merida wants her mom to change her mind. So Merida finds this witch in the woods. I like the witch is fun. And seemingly her whole thing is bears. Like her cottage in the woods is full of novelty bear carvings that she sells. And we learn that the last guy that she gave magic to, she also turned into a bear. And so Merida is like, I want something to change my mum. Which is not how anyone would phrase that. But then it's also like, it seems like that's the only thing this witch does, so I don't know. I feel like you could have just rewritten that bit, but whatever. I'm like willing to overlook it. Number 2, Beauty and the Beast. Another one where people are like, you haven't seen that? Now I have. Things I liked. It looks amazing, obviously. I don't love the village. I love the enchanted castle. I think that all looks cool. I think the village is lame. I think that's on purpose. It's supposed to be like contrast. But every time we're in the village, I'm like, ugh, this ugly village. I like the talking furniture. I think they're fun comic relief. I know people are nitpicky. Like, why did the enchantress turn the servants into furniture? That's not nice. I don't know. I guess I just don't care that much. The music is great. I like that the villain is Gaston, who's just like a normal dude who sucks. I feel like the pop culture think piece take like 10 years ago was that Belle has Stockholm syndrome. But she leaves the castle twice. Whenever she's given an opportunity, she's like, okay, bye. So I feel like the writers did a good job balancing that. Like, how do we have a romance with a person who's in captivity of the other person? And then I also liked Maurice has this invention that like chops wood or whatever, and that comes back in the 3rd act. That was very exciting. It's the wood chopping thing. Oh my god. Things I did not like. The Beast. This movie is very like book talk, romantasy, enemies to lovers. But the Beast sucks really bad at the beginning. He has such a terrible temper that I'm not convinced it's resolved by the end of the movie. He gets better. Cool. but he's definitely not my favorite of the princes. And then speaking of, also Belle is not my favorite. I know people love her. Is it just because she reads? I know she's kind of stubborn and outspoken. I don't know. I just didn't connect with her. I don't love her voice. I don't know. I don't particularly love either of them. I think the romance is quite good because this is a romance movie more so than most of the other ones. So we really have time to sort of flesh that out and explore that. But the two of them individually, not my faves. Also, I feel like Belle has such an unclear motivation. Like, she sings that song about how she wants adventure in the great wide somewhere. I guess this counts as an adventure. I sort of interpreted that as, I want to leave this small town where nobody gets me. And also, I am not particularly interested in marriage right now. I want to, like, go see the world. And she does get to leave her town, and she does find somebody who quasi understands her. But to be fair, she's not the character with the character arc. That would be the Beast. It's just weird because she's our point of view character. She's our protagonist, and she's the one who has the I Want song. So it's weird story-wise that it's like, actually, Belle, you're fine, and you're gonna go marry this rich guy who's briefly very hairy, but now is not. I feel like people are gonna be confused by my rankings. Like, well, doesn't that mean that you don't like the movie? No. It's like, no, it's like a holistic approach. And then number 1, Moana from 2016. I didn't expect this, but I really liked it. I feel like Moana is very strong as a whole, like as a strong movie, even if there are things about it that I don't like. I feel like liking something doesn't mean there's an absence of things you dislike. It just means that the things you like them a lot. So, things I liked. First of all, looks really cool. Looks great. I'm not really a tropical person, not a boat person, not an ocean person, but I do think this movie aesthetically is amazing. And then Moana. I really like her as a character. I don't even feel like I have anything specific that I like about her. I just like her. I don't know. She's charming. She's trying her best. The music is really good, which I was apprehensive because this is Lin-Manuel Miranda. But I feel like it's a truth universally acknowledged about Lin-Manuel Miranda is that his music is great when he's not singing it. I feel like it's a good overall soundtrack, and there's good, like, reprises and, like, callbacks and stuff. The song that the crab sings is, like, whatever. That's probably, like, the weak point for me. I loved Moana's grandma. Moana's grandma sends her on this quest to sort of restore peace to the island. The demigod Maui stole this heart stone from Te Fiti, who's like a goddess. And ever since then, sort of the islands have been dying, like a blight has been spreading, and now it's reaching Moana's island. And to fix it, we have to find Maui and then go to Te Fiti and bring this stone, and it'll like restore everything. So Moana sails off alone on this quest, and at her lowest point when she feels like she's failed, her grandma appears to her as a spirit and is like, oh, I shouldn't have like made you go on this quest and like put all this pressure on you. If you want to go home, I'll be with you and I'll support you. I teared up during that scene, and then also when Moana gives the stone to Te Fiti, I teared up during that scene. Which is the only movie to almost make me cry. So obviously wins points for that. As for dislikes, I do not like Maui, which is a shame because he's like a big part of the movie. But he's like kind of a dick to Moana like the whole time. He keeps like trying to leave her behind and throw her off the boat and stuff. And I think we're supposed to be like, huh, funny. He's like being mean. No, that sucks. He sucks. He's not particularly funny. I feel like he's supposed to be comic relief, funny all the time. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. He has these tattoos that are magical and animated, and those are cool. But I don't know. I don't love him. But it wasn't enough to, like, bring the whole movie down for me, you know? So that's my list. I'm sure you hate it. I'm sure you have all of the movies in different spots. Feel free to tell me your list and why it's better than mine. If you liked this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Tumblr. I've been posting a lot of short form content that's more casual, so go check that out. I also got a P.O. box, so you can send me things in the mail if you want to. No pressure. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So, bye! Just so we know, this is how it would have looked with the hair up.